Hello and thanks for tuning in. In this video we're going to be changing out the fuel filters, both fuel filters on a 2017 Ram 2500 6.7 diesel. What we're going to do is remove the rear filter first and the front one, and we're going to kind of do some voiceover work here as we do it. With these trucks, you know, if you back it up on a flat area, on the back one, you can pretty much roll under it to get at it. You don't have to jack it up, but you know, do whatever you feel is going to work better for yourself. First thing you're going to want to do is where I'm grabbing right there, that blue line goes up to the sensor that's plugged in. Now, in my model, there's no red clip. You just basically on the top of it, there's a little button you got to depress. Once you depress that, it'll pop right out. There we go. Just like that. Yes, big boy. Can you give me some paper? Okay, next thing you want to do now is you want to drain the fuel out of the fuel filter. There's a little knob there. You turn that where the sensor goes right up into, and it takes quite a few turns, but the fuel will start coming out. I use a bottle to catch it. A lot of guys use a long hose to bring it down to a container. I believe it's a 3/8 or ½ inch hose. So if you feel like getting one of those and using it, be my guest. I just use a bottle. Next time I do it, I might get the hose. We'll see. This is my first time doing it on this truck. Went pretty well. Next thing you want to do is once that drains out, I like using some big oil filter wrench type pliers. They're adjustable, and you get a real good grip on that, and you can unspin it. Thing is, I learned I learned the hard way there is when I'm right under the truck here, and when you loosen it up, there's still going to be a decent amount of fuel in there, so I got pretty much soaked with that. So keep in mind that when you do drain it from this section here, it's not going to be all the fuel. All the fuel won't come out. There'll still be some in there, so just keep that in mind. Don't get hosed like I did. Okay, once you get all the fuel removed, the next thing you want to do is pull off the filter. I have an oil filter pliers set that I've been using for years now. This works pretty well. There's some straps on the market. Use whatever works for you. This seems to work out pretty good for myself, so gives you a little bit of leverage there. You're gonna dent the fuel filter. It really doesn't matter though, because it's being removed and replaced. Main thing you don't want to do is mess up that sensor on the bottom with the wire coming out, because that is going to be reused and installed on the new fuel filter. So just keep that in mind. Okay, what you want to do now is compare the old fuel filter with a new fuel filter. Should be nearly identical. If there's an issue, bring it back to the parts store and get one that fits. You do not want to put one on that's not correct. You can strip the threads, couldn't run right, build the motor, many things that happen. Just make certain that parts are correct.
That's it. It's already on.
Okay, another little tip for you guys. These fuel filters, they do have a little tension in the part where the screw goes into the mount there. So when I did it, I thought, you know, I haven't done one of these before personally. I've done a lot of oil changes, but not one of these. So when you do it, you want to make sure it's lined up exact center, then push up on it and then start threading it, because otherwise it won't thread. Now when you put this on, you want to just do it hand tight, you know, get it nice and tight by hand, but don't put a wrench on there. And before you put it on, just like any other filter, in this case it's a fuel filter, just take a little bit of fuel, put it around that O-ring so it spins on there nicely and gets a good seal. And like I said, just tighten down by hand, should be good. And then plug the sensor back in and make sure that knob is tight where you unscrewed it for the to drain the fuel filter. Now, one thing you want to make sure of, that there's no debris that's on the outside there that's going to fall into the fuel filter housings. If it does, that's going into your motor, more than obvious there. So make sure it's nice and clean, pop it off, and you're ready to go. Okay, now we're ready to change the front filter. I didn't take any footage of that part. But what you want to do is you want to come down straight between, there's some kind of plug-in sensors there, but you'll see what I mean when you do it. You want to come down straight between there and the firewall. Use a long extension. I use a 1/2-inch ratchet adapter, and make sure you get the proper socket that will fit the nut on the top of the oil filter cap there. Once you do that, it's still tight. That's the easiest way to do it instead of getting it wrenched down in there. There's not much leverage, so using that extension through that top section there will work the best, and you get some leverage. A couple of cranks, it's on there pretty tight. We'll get it off for you. Okay, as you can see by that previous clip there, old filter and new filter. I'm not sure how many miles the old filter had on it. The truck has around 20,000 on it right now at the time of this video. I don't know if it was ever changed or not. At the normal interval, it's usually about 15,000 miles. So here's the install on this part. The fuel filter will come with a gasket for the top there. So what you want to do is put that around the top ring. It's got a nice snug fit to it. So put it around the top of the ring there. Make sure it's nice and tight and on well, seated well with your fingers. And once again, use some fuel to lubricate to get it to seat well. Once that's in, take the fuel filter, and what you're going to do is you're going to place it in there nice and easy, and you're going to turn it until you feel it kind of lock in, because you can see in the bottom of the filter has like a certain shape to it. So once it locks in, push it down, you'll hear a nice click pop, and it's going to be in there, and you're good to go.
Want to throw this out? There it is. How do I know it's in right? Did it click or pop? Oh yeah, you're in. Try to pull it out and try it. I mean, just tug on it. If it moves, then yeah, you're in there. You're in. If it wasn't in, it would have popped right out.
Yeah.
Okay, once you're all done with that, obviously you want to put the fuel filter cap on back. Also be careful you don't cross thread it. It's plastic, it'll cross thread, and don't over tighten it. The torque spec should say right on the top, off the top of my head, I believe was 33.5 foot-pounds. Don't quote me, but it should say right on the top of the cap there the exact specs for it. So make sure you torque it down to specs, and you won't
No need to clean the cap, right?
Go now. Tip for you guys, at a 1/2-inch torque wrench, that won't work. So you're probably going to need a 3/8, which I'll get for the next fuel filter change, to make sure I'm exactly dead on with the torque specs.
See if that went.
Okay, now it's time to start her. Now I should say actually on the fuel filter kit how to prime the whole system to get the air out. I put the key in the ignition and, had the fuel pump start up about 4 times. Next time I do this, I'm probably going to do about 5 or 6. because when you first crank it over, it's going to take a while to crank. You don't want it really cranking more than 10 seconds. So I would say prime it 5 or 6 times and make sure that fuel pump is completely primed between each cycle before you turn the key off, and then crank it over. Now it probably won't even start up the first time. Here, I cranked it the first time, died. Second time I was cranking it for a while, and the third time it started and ran. So don't be you know, because I thought I got upset at first why I wasn't starting, but it's normal for this. There's some air in the system, so just follow that procedure and you'll be fine.
I'm dirty too. I'm not going to sit in the seat. That dirt gets on the seat, all right?
Fuel filters look good.
Yeah, no leaks.